Morning, everyone. Hope you're having a nice Friday. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about these two games right here. Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. The Definitive Edition is we'll call it the facelift that they moved to the Switch, because a lot of people really like this game, so they wanted to play it on the Switch. Anyways, this is not going to be a spoiler-free comparison per se. It might be. I haven't scripted this video yet. But on the off chance it's not, before I drop the spoiler alert, I will say this. Both of these are super fun games. I liked them both. So, yes, I'm going to be comparing them, the pros and cons of both, because, well, there's pros and cons. I definitely like one of these better, but they're both great games. They're both great games. So if you want to go play both, definitely. If you played this one first, don't feel weird about like playing this one after, because these two, it's kind of like, I'm hesitant to compare it to the Final Fantasy series, where like Final Fantasy 1 is not necessarily related to Final Fantasy 7 2, but it's kind of hard to talk about without like talking about the game. So play them both. They're both great. Now, I picked a couple categories to compare them. But first of all, on this channel, packaging is king. So let's have a look at the packaging. I love what they've done with Definitive Edition, because it is an absolute callback to this one, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The composition is essentially identical. You have the main sword in the game in the front with a titan in the background. I just love it. These two boxes look wonderful next to each other, and whoever did the design on this did an absolutely wonderful job. Now let's have a look at the inside covers, because that's important too. Square Enix doesn't have these, so they need to get on it. I'm gonna try not to get the glare on this one, but here we go. So again, they both look great. You can kind of have a look at the artwork on the cartridge there, which is another touch that Square Enix has definitely not super great on. Their style is very minimal, but I don't want to talk about Square Enix today. Anyway, as you can see, for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they kind of just took the art that was on the front and condensed it. But the artwork on Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, they kind of did this design with the Monado, which it looks really nice. This screenshot is actually from the extra story, which I will be comparing their extra stories as well. But let's get into it. First of all, if I were to compare the stories of these games... Oh, by the way, oh wait, I didn't give the spoiler warning yet. I didn't spoil anything yet, so that's okay. Yeah, so I would say, oh yeah, spoiler alert for the rest of this video, just in case, so finish the games first. Finish them first. Anyways, story-wise, I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is, oh well, I have to preface this. I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 first. I played 2 first before 1. I never had one on the Wii, because it was hard to get. I never had it on the 3DS, just because it didn't look very good to me. So yeah, I played 2 first, and I have to say, maybe I'm a little biased. I hear a lot of people say, oh, the story for 1 is so much better than the story of 2. They're both great. I actually like 2 better. I think this story is a lot more dynamic. As far as the character growth and stuff. I have a couple issues. I just finished Xenoblade Chronicles 1 yesterday. Actually, no, technically today, 3 a.m. this morning, if you include the side story. But, yeah, so basically, one of my issues was, like, Schultz gets the Monado, and then he immediately starts seeing visions, and it kind of feels like he gets used to seeing these visions a little bit too quickly. I don't know, it's hard to say, because I don't know. It was kind of vague. I felt like the character development of Shulk was a lot less dynamic than the character development of Rex in 2. I definitely think Rex is a lot more dynamic of a character than Shulk. Unpopular opinion, probably, but that's okay. Like and subscribe. um, yeah. So going on to the main character. Well, a little bit more on the story. Um, hmm. They're both really great stories. They're both a lot of fun to play. They both keep you playing. I think it's hard to say because both of these I felt the beginnings were somewhat a little bit tricky to kind of get into. Like for Xenoblade Chronicles, you know, uh, like I said, spoiler alert in the beginning, your waifu gets killed by a mechon, which is one of the main enemies in the game. So your whole idea is, okay, I'm gonna go and find this mechon, and as Shulk's gonna go find this mechon, and he's gonna go kill him and get revenge. That, I mean, it's not a very dynamic story. This one's a little different. Rex goes on a mercenary mission to go salvage this sunken airship, and then the team that hired him basically kills his entire team and him as well. But he bonds with this sword, this special blade, and he kind of meets this blade in a dream, and the blade's also a girl. It sounds complicated. If you've played the beginning, you'll understand, or if you know a little bit about the story, it'll make sense. But so her name's Homura. Pyra's the English name, but I think Homura sounds a little bit prettier. And she's like, I need to get to Elysium. Elysium is at the top of this world tree, this big towering tree that all of the titans, all of these giant titans with life forms and environments on their backs are circling around. So, I don't know, I think basically what happens is she shares half of her life force with Rex. Then they go on this mission together to get to Elysium. I think that's a little bit more dynamic than better go get revenge because Metal Face killed Fiora. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you disagree. That's okay. Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so moving on to main characters. Okay, let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles first. Like I said, Shulk, he's a decent character. Like I said, I think Rex is better. I think Ryan is a pretty dynamic character, actually. I think, in English it's Charla, but I played both games with the Japanese voices because I just think they're better. I don't mind reading subs. So, yeah, I think Charla's a pretty dynamic character as well. So is Fiora. I think Shulk is probably, well, he's still a decent character. I think he's probably the least dynamic character. Oh, what was the main long hair sword guy's name? What was his name? Danban, yeah. He's a pretty... He's an alright character. I'd say he's about as dynamic as Shulk. So, former wielder of the Monado. He's kind of running around with the guy that wields the Monado now. So, okay. Well, not necessarily. No, yeah. I would say he's probably as dynamic as Shulk. And then you have... what's her name? The Hyentia girl. What was it? I'm sorry. I literally just played this game last night, and the side quest heavily featured her. I'm gonna Google it right now because I completely forgot. Mellie, that's right. I'm stupid. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think Mellie is a decent character as well. I think she's a little more dynamic than Shulk. I guess they're okay. I don't know. It's tough to talk about a game right after you finish it because you're like, ugh, I just poured hours into this game. So nostalgic. It's true. The characters were good. The characters were good in both games. I think the character development of Rex is a little bit more dynamic. You see a little bit more of a range in Rex than you do in Shulk. Definitely. You know, you see Rex in the game when he's ready to give up, his friends kind of push him around and say, "Hey, don't quit," you know. Don't abandon Hamura. So I don't know. There's all sorts of different characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like, you know, one of the characters, you know, you're fighting in the beginning becomes one of your allies. Actually, two of the characters that you fight in the beginning become your allies. You know, you have like a cat girl in your party. You have you have a little flying fairy that's your granddad in your party. You have like the Inquisitor from this very military centered nation in your party, and then you have this kind of comedic relief older brother type character who is running around your party. And I would say they all have pretty decent backstories. They all have dynamic backstories. They all have dynamic character growth, especially Rex, and especially oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. Nia. Ooh, close one. Especially Nia and Rex. And, you know, Pyra and Mithra. They all just have a really, really good character development. Zeke and the Inquisitor lady. You see a little bit of development with them, but I think they're older characters, so like it's not quite as dynamic for them. But I don't know. I personally think that Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the characters were more dynamic. I think they were little bit more memorable. Even though I totally almost forgot some of their names. But yeah. Okay, so moving on to the music. And this, for me personally, this is a very, very important part of a game. If the music sucks in a game, I'm not saying it sucked in either games, but in general, if the music in a game is not up to par with the rest of the game's not going to be nearly as good. I mean, I know it sounds, you know, redundant to say, but music is a really dynamic part of the game. Music is what appeals to your emotions in the game. That's what helps give you an emotional connection with the game. And when you have a positive emotional connection with a game, that's how you enjoy a game. So, talking about both of these games, I apologize if I get a little technical with the music. I'll try to avoid it. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't script this video. This is just off the cuff. Let's start with the main theme. The main opening theme when you're on the, when you're on the title screen of both games. First of all, I think both main themes are great. I think they're really good songs. I think they're effective. That being said, the title screen song for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I think it's called Elysium of the Blue Sky. It features exclusively piano. So I've played piano for a while, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I think it's better because you see this theme, you see the main theme in many of the cutscenes in the game, and the thing is with this theme, it's very efficient because you have a very mellow intro, you have a little bit more dynamic in the middle, and then you have it all leads to a crescendo at the end, and then it also finishes very mellow. So you have a dynamic range of themes that you get from this one song. So what they've done is they've timed the cutscenes for the more dynamic parts to take place towards the more crescendo. That means like when the sound is getting like bigger, when it's the build up, if you will. you know. So they put the more dynamic scenes at that point in the music, or they'll time the music to do that. Or when it's supposed to be more subtle, they'll put it in. Like, you almost don't even notice the music coming in. It's so subtle, which is very, very well done. This song's title theme is also really great. It's not a solo piano piece. It involves several instruments. I noticed they did use, or maybe they just sampled really, really high quality strings, but I've been listening to music for a long time. I know that doesn't mean much from some nobody YouTuber with 4 subscribers, but just bear with me. I've been listening to music for a long time, so I like to think, I gotta be fair, I could be wrong, but I like to think I can tell when there's acoustic instruments used versus synthesized. There's some good samples out there, not gonna lie. I noticed that they did record. I personally believe the piano and the strings were recorded live. I'm gonna go with that. If I'm wrong, that's fine. That's fine. I don't know everything. I'm not claiming to be, the authority on this. You can let me know in the comments that I'm full of crap or something. That's fine. I don't care. It's a conversation. They did use synthesized sounds in this one. They did have more instruments, but they also supplemented those with, I think, I'm not 100% on the oboe. The oboe, the vibratos were a little bit too uniform. I don't know. Like I said, I could be wrong. They were a little bit too uniform. So I'd say 50% chance either way. But they definitely used like some kind of synthesized pipes. Or synthesized, I think it was a pipe sound, but it just kind of like threw me. It's like okay, you have this dynamic, musical space, and then you drop in this very flat sounding synthesizer pipe sound. It's like, I mean, okay, I'm downplaying a little bit. It's like I said, it's a great song. It's a great opening. I'm not a huge fan of the heavy use of... Yes, it's true, this game also has synthesized sounds for all the critics out there, but I'm not crazy on the emphasis put on the synthesized voices in these... okay, by voices I mean like sounds, not actual voices. In this game. So, there was one scene where... There's a couple scenes where they could have, where they used basically, they used this really just corny, I don't know, it was just a synthesizer in the song. It lost a lot of the impact in the cutscene, which I was a little disappointed in. I wish, so in this game they used the main title theme throughout the whole game. It's a common musical theme. This game, they do use the title theme a lot. I wish they used it more. That being said, this game is, I am hesitant to call it a remake for reasons I'll get into later. But I do want to say, I do want to commend them because they included the original music from the Wii, the original soundtrack, as well as some of they call it, in the menus when you can choose, because you can choose between the new ones and the old ones, they call it like arranged. It just uses slightly different instruments, probably more acoustic instruments than sampled instruments. I would guess. I played the entire game with the arranged because I'll be honest, it was just better. But for those guys out there who need your nostalgia, it's all in here, which is something that I appreciate in, I guess, a remake of an older game. So that was a nice touch. That was definitely a nice touch. That being said, The music throughout the entire game, I think as a whole, I liked this music better across like every track across the game. I think was better in this title than this one. Like I said, both games are great. Play them both. Both games have good music. This one's is a bit better. So, next off to environments. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, you know, the Bionis and the Mechonis, you know, there's such iconic environments in this game." But you know, compared to this one, where you have, instead of just 2 Titans, you have multiple Titans. You know, the world feels very fragmented. I would disagree. I actually think this makes the world feel bigger than this world. Like, in my personal opinion, when I played this game, I felt the world seemed kind of smaller compared to this one. So, I don't know. It's hard to compare the environments because, you know, now that this game got a Switch release, like a Switch version with a, you know, improved graphics and all that, this, you know, these 2 games are now playing on the same playing field. You can't be like, "Oh, well, that was on the Wii, that was on the 3DS." These 2 games are now on the same playing field. So it is absolutely valid to compare them to each other. But yeah, you know, there's arguments for both. I like this one better. I think the environments are dynamic in both. I think it's hard to not be biased because I played this one first, but both of these have great games. I can't say one had better environments than the other per se. So I'm probably just going to leave it at that. At the end of the day, like what you like. That's my rule. Okay, environments, gameplay. So, gameplay. First, I want to talk a little bit about Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition in particular. So, one thing they did was... Here, I'll show you. As you can see here, we have comparisons of Shulk's model. As you can see, the 3DS looks like absolute dog shit. And the Wii looks a little better. But Shulk's face still looks like... it just doesn't look good. Let's be fair, it was the Wii. It was back in the Wii. Now look at this, the Switch one. It looks great. It looks wonderful. That being said, I have a couple issues with how they did this. So here's the thing. What they did, and when you play if you looked at the original game and then you play the new one, you will notice that they kept all of the textures for Shulk all the way up to his neck. So if you look closely, like, his clothing still looks somewhat flat. You know, like if you were to zoom in, it would look it would look blurry. If you compare that to some of the textures in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, yes, I know it's a different art style, it's a more anime art style, so they can get away with a little more. But if you look at their clothing in particular, there's just more detail. There's more, you know, there's more rain. That's not the right word. Their clothes don't look as flat in this game. They look, I don't know, more lifelike, I guess. Yeah, anyways. So, that's issue number 1. All the main characters and all the main NPCs, they gave their faces a facelift, if you will. They made them look a lot better than the flat, lifeless faces from the original. They look great. I think that they should have given that treatment to the entire cast. Now, that being said, a lot of the NPCs and some of the NPCs that appear in cutscenes, the faces still have this old art style. They reused a lot of old assets from the game instead of remaking them. Like, I don't know if they said we're gonna remake this game from the ground up, because that was a lie. If they did say that, I don't know if they'd said that, but they reused assets from the original game. a lot of the NPCs have the old art style in their faces, because you can tell. You can just tell by the style, like the way that the shadows are drawn. There's, the way they're blended in. It's less of a cell shaded type of look, more so of a more like a painted almost look. And you can see this especially if you look at some of the contour lines on some of the characters. When you look underneath the clothes they have, because you can give them the swimsuit skins and all that. Yeah, if you look at their contour lines on their bodies as opposed to their heads, it's a little bit less sharp, I'd say, especially in the hands. If you look at the hands, I had a real issue with the hands, because like if you look at like Shulk's hands in the cutscenes, they do not appear to have as many polygons as his face does. I don't know how I didn't work on this game. I didn't make this game, so I can't with authority say like, oh, well, they just took the old assets for sure. I don't know. But what I know for sure is, I think it could have been a lot better, especially looking at the characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And even in the extra story, when Shulk gets his new outfit and Mellie gets her new outfit, they look great. Like, they have really high quality textures on them. The clothes match with the rest of their face, like as far as the detail goes. So I don't know what to say, maybe they just had a really low budget to work with and they couldn't really afford to do all that. Maybe that's why they still relied so much on synthesized sounds. Not necessarily primarily, but they did use them, I would say, more prominently than they did in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Sorry, this is already getting to be a long video. So, yeah, so that's my thing on the graphic. Now, the gameplay, I don't think anybody argues with this. The gameplay in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is superior to Xenoblade Chronicles 1, even the Definitive Edition. First of all, compared to the original version, like graphic-wise, like this looks great. This looks absolutely great. This is your battle HUD. My issue is you have to scroll. You have 8, okay, not including the Monado or your talent arts, you have 8 moves to choose from, whereas in Xenoblade Chronicles you only have 4 main staple moves. My issue is you have to scroll using the D-pad, or this one. That's not a D-pad technically, but you gotta scroll using these buttons on the Switch controller. So sometimes if you scroll too many times and you miss, you can accidentally hit the wrong art, or you can heal the wrong character. There's a lot of scrolling in the game. They did faithfully recreate the game, and they did faithfully improve it, I will say, but it just wasn't a superior system to begin with. So that's fine. That's fine. Like I said, graphic-wise, like this is a very clean HUD. It looks great. It's not irritating in any way. That was my biggest concern, because when I heard that they were doing a port of this game or a remake or whatever, I was concerned. I was like, the HUD didn't look good on the original. I hope it's better. And they did. They nailed it. So good job to the devs on this one. Good job, Monolith Soft. Now, this is the HUD for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So the mechanics are a little bit different in this game. Instead of having 8 moves, you have 3, and then a special move that you get once you fill up your talent gauge. They're here on the left, and they are mapped to these buttons on the Switch controller, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about scrolling or anything, because all the buttons are right here, and it's mapped exactly how it would be on your controller, which is great. Same with the left side. You can actually switch between your blades, and all that's mapped to this side, which is really well done. This game, it was only ever on the Switch, but this game, really utilized the Switch controllers well, the Joy-Cons really well. So I think this game mechanic, or I think the battle engine in this game is much more refined, and it's much more streamlined, I've heard a lot of people say, and I agree. Going back to Xenoblade Chronicles 1 real quick, the main mechanic in the game is like Shulk can see the future with his sword or whatever. I think actually Rex can do that with the second version of the Aegis that he gets. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the lore. There's better people on YouTube for lore stuff, and the lore is really fascinating for both of these games. I highly recommend doing a deep dive if you're stuck at home in quarantine and don't have anything better to do. Yeah, so Shulk will get occasionally like visions, which will kind of pull you out of the battle, and you'll see like if you're fighting a boss, you'll see the boss kind of, you know, do like a really powerful move against a character, and it might kill that character, and you might. So what you can do is you can go and you can warn that character to do a move that will prevent their demise or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. It's a main staple of the game. If I said that I found it irritating and irksome, I mean, you could just argue like, well, that's just how the game is. That's part of the game, you know. Shulk can see the future with his Monado. That's just how it is. You don't have that mechanic in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I don't know. It's hard to say because this game existed before Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, all I can really say at this point is it is what it is. I wasn't a huge fan of that kind of mechanic. But, like I said, it's part of the game. It's part of the gameplay mechanic. So, you know. Oh, another point I wanted to make. Some of the final boss in this game, you fight in the head of Bionis, Zanza, and you fight him. And the thing is, when you're fighting him, you're in this very, like, cloudy kind of sphere type thing. Like, you can't see the ground you're walking on. You're kind of in this, almost like a planetarium type looking thing, except it's all around you. It's really irritating because it's really difficult to see which side of the enemy you're on, and that's important because certain moves, like if you look down here, this move on the left here, because it's a sword pointing left, that means that that move does bonus damage if you are on either side of your enemy. And there's also ones for the back, which is the backslash right here, the one with the exclamation mark. See, Shulk is behind this guy, so if he uses backslash, he's going to get a bonus damage. So that's really important because that helps you fill up your party gauge, which allows you to do chain attacks, which are present in both games. You know, they basically allow you to control all three party members at the same time. But like I said, it's really irritating when it's difficult to see which side of the boss you are on. Yeah, there's other things, little nitpicks about the game too that I had. One of the fights when you're fighting the Mechon boss, like he just keeps summoning all these extra guys, and I'll be honest. So I was using Ryan as my tank. I had his HP maxed out, 9,999 HP. He was completely maxed out. And it still took me many, many tries. Like, it was just a really tough boss fight. I would say that was probably the toughest boss fight in the game for me. Like, the final boss was tough, but not as tough as the Mechon boss. It was really hard. I was up like all night. I think 2 nights ago. Almost all night trying to beat it, and I was like, I just need to go to sleep. So I went to sleep because my brother was like, hey, I'm trying to sleep. So I went to sleep, woke up the next morning, grinded some more, tried to level up some more, and then I got lucky. I got lucky because he normally he would summon like a bunch of extra guys at one time, but he only summoned like less of them, and I don't know how I beat that boss. Yikes. Anyway, a lot of games have bosses like that. It doesn't have to be the last boss, but some of those bosses are just really tough. Okay, so that's all I had to say on gameplay. They're both fun games, like I said. I try to keep saying this. They're both really fun games. Play them both if you can. Okay, gameplay. All right, now I wanted to spend some time talking about the extra stories, or the side stories. for these games. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, it's already included, which is nice. It's I would say maybe about if you include all the side quests, maybe 10 to 20 hours of extra content. I wouldn't say it was as much extra content as this. That being said, I paid about $30 for this. And yes, it did come with, you know, extra content for this game as well, but this was also its own game, its own prequel game. So I kind of have to do a mini review of both of these side stories. So in this game, they took an unused asset from the original game, the shoulder of the Bionis, and they populated it. They made a whole story around it, which I thought was a really creative use of that asset. Story was pretty good. It was all right. Basically, you know what? No, I take that back. I don't think that there were aspects of the story about this side story that were good. It just wasn't a very dynamic story, though, you know? It didn't hold the same weight as this one did. Maybe it's unfair to compare these two, because this one's a free one and this one costs $30, and it's on its own cartridge. Maybe that's not fair. Again, let me know in the comments, but basically in this game, you go to the shoulder and you're with Mellie and you're trying to find the capital of the High Entia, which apparently moved to the left or the shoulder of the Bionis. I don't know. I just thought maybe I didn't do some certain side quests in the main game that were critical to understanding this, but I felt that there was a bit of a disconnect between this main story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and the side story. Still a great side story, definitely play it. But, by the way, this is not a sponsored video. I get no money for doing this. I'm just doing it for fun and for you guys. So, the environment's beautiful. The left shoulder, they did a really good job really making it a fun place to explore. They took out chain attack, which I felt was irritating. They took it out in favor of another game mechanic, because you have to go and recruit all these Nopons. And unpopular opinion, I didn't like the Nopons to begin with. I think they're annoying, but like what you like. Yeah, so basically the capital is inhabited by this rift, and you have to go and fight this boss called the Mist King, which is just this, he's just this blob of antimatter or something. He's just a big, invisible, cloudy, foggy thing. It's never explained the significance of that rift or what it really is. I mean, they do say, like, oh, maybe because the world is new, because, you know, she'll kind of set the world on a different path. You know, maybe because the world is still young, there's a rift, and it's just kind of a mess with it. It's never explained, and it's not a very, significant enemy. It's very, like, it's just a blob. It's a blob of ether. It's a blob of antimatter. That's the Mist King. You don't know anything about it. It's just some beast. You don't know. And you go and you fight. And I played through the whole thing kind of hoping that it would be some kind of connection to this game, because these two games are related. They are related. They're not separate. You know, yes, you could play only one and be fine, or you could play one in any order, they'd be fine. These two games are related, and you will see if you play the whole game. They had a huge opportunity to do something to link both of these games together. I mean, you know, this game was awesome because you had that extra zone. I think it was part of the DLC, but you could actually bring Shulk and Fiora into this game as blades, which was pretty neat. And it makes sense if you understand the story of both of these games. I'm not going to do a deep dive into it right now, but yikes, already 40 minutes. I better wrap this up. They missed a huge opportunity, in my opinion, to link both of these games together with that. It's called Future Connected. Like, I was basically expecting that. Future Connected. That's exactly what comes to mind after having played this game, right? And most people who probably played, you know, who bought, a lot of people who probably bought this game probably played this game. And they're like, oh, Future Connected? I wonder how it connects. It doesn't. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It's a very, I think the story could have been a lot better. There's more they could have done with it. Like I said, maybe they had a low budget or something. Maybe this, maybe that. But I didn't think it was very good. Especially compared to this masterpiece right here. This is a prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And it talks a lot about the characters that kind of preceded the characters of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And they're all very dynamic. The story is very rich. Rich in characters, and yeah, you only have 2 titans to go between. It's a smaller, it's like a miniature version of the game, and yes, it is somewhat grindy because there are certain points in the game where you're forced to just do a bunch of side quests to raise your what's the word? Reputation, in order to unlock story content, to finish the story content. So it is a little grindy. They do force you to do the side quests and really explore the world, which can seem tiresome, but I get it. They wanted to make the game, they wanted you to feel like you're getting your money's worth. And first of all, like, let me just say, okay, well, I already used the code, so that's not worth anything. Look at that. That's, here, I'll pull this out so you can see it. That's the inside cover. Look at that. I love physical media. I love it. It's you can hold in your hand, you get all this special artwork. It's great. It's awesome. So yeah, again, the gameplay of this game is similar to the gameplay in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Little different. Highly, highly, highly recommend playing this if you have played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, or even if you haven't yet and you want to play this first. It's really great. It's awesome. I love it. I'm glad I bought it. Yeah, so environments, they're both good. Shoulder of the Bionis looks great. So does Torna. Torna looks awesome. Story-wise, this one's definitely better. Characters, I mean, okay, so your party in the extra story in Xenoblade Chronicles Future Connected, you have Shulk and you have Mellie. Yeah. And they both got, their entire models got facelifts this time, because their clothes have textures. They have proper textures. And then you get these 2 Noppon characters, which, I mean, you already know how I feel about that. Was it because they couldn't afford to bring back one of the voice actors from the old game? I personally would have preferred if they had let you bring Fiora along too, because, well, that wouldn't really make... No, yeah, because you didn't really get a chance to play with Fiora a ton before she, before she got her mechanized body. So that would have been sort of cool. If she was like a tank or something. But, yeah, it just, it would have, it would have been cool if you could have, switched up, if they would have switched up Shulk's abilities. Maybe Shulk could have been the tank, and, it could have been cool. Instead, you get these 2 new characters who, I don't think they needed 2 Noppons. They could have just done with the one. They're decent characters. They have decent builds. But, yeah, I don't know. I think they should have been given a bigger budget. I don't know their situation. I don't know the situation of the company. I think with a bigger budget, it could have been a better game, but you could say that about literally any game. So, conclusion, this side story was better. You do get what you pay for, I guess. Yeah, one last note. Especially considering that they gave, they redid like Shulk's costume for Future Connected. they could have given that same treatment to all of his outfits. Now I get it. There's one main difference between Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. In 1, you can custom all the different armor you equip has a different look. So there's a ton of different like cosmetic things that you can get. And it's like, okay, I get it. That probably would have taken a long time and a lot of money to recreate all of those. But at the very least, they could have taken Shulk's classic, sweater, vest, sweater, hoodie, whatever, his sweater with his vest. They could have taken that, and they could have, made it look, they could have redone that at least, They could have made his clothing look a little bit less flat in the main game. So, yeah, it's not a remake from the ground up. That would be false. But, at the end of the day, it still looks worlds better than it did on the Wii and the 3DS. It's absolutely worth a play. The story is really good. I know I bashed on it a lot in this video, but, they're both great games. Play them both. They're both awesome. Anyways, I think that's all I got for today before I start rambling. But, yeah, if you like the video, if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Sorry this video is a little bit longer, about a little over 45 minutes. I had a lot to say. I was up till 3 o'clock last night finishing this game. It was fun. I had a fun time. It was a lot of fun. One final note. This game, well, I want to commend the devs. There's no microtransactions in this game. There's one DLC pass, and it comes with this, and you get your money's worth absolutely. This has an RNG engine. A very irritating RNG engine. And those people who are watching this video, if you've played this game and you have attempted or have completed your Blade album, you understand. It can be very irritating trying to get every blade, especially if Cosmos is your last blade, because the chances of getting Cosmos, even with your luck all the way up and your idea points all the way up, it's still very, very, very low. It's like a 1% chance. I did it, though, somehow. Anyways, take it easy.